I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Well, Hermantown residents are being asked to extend the city's 1% sales tax to help pay for a regional wellness center.
October is all about Shakespeare at UMD with the Bard's first folio, the centerpiece of the month's events.
And Minnesota's tallest bridge is rising above an abandoned Iron Range mine pit. We will update you on the Highway 53 relocation project.
These stories and more are coming up on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Denny, a good mix of topics on tonight's program.
We're going to be from everywhere from Duluth to the Iron Range to Hermantown, so we're going to be bouncing around a little bit tonight.
Covering a lot of ground, and it's time to introduce our first guest.
All right, very fine. Thank you very much, Julie, and welcome everyone. Voters in the city of Hermantown will have a referendum item on their ballot come November. Citizens will be asked to affirm a measure that would extend the city's 1% sales tax to help pay for a regional wellness center. The center would be operated by Essentia Health and located at the site of Hermantown's recently vacated middle school. Joining us now with more is Mike Lundstrom. He is chair of the Vote Yes for a Healthy Hermantown Citizens Group, and John Mulder is Hermantown's city administrator. Thank you both for being here. And Mike, is this vote going to raise taxes in Hermantown?
No, it's not, and that's one of our missions, is to get out into public to explain to people that we are able to finance through Hermantown for this project without a tax increase.
Mm-hmm. John, talk about the Wellness Center project itself and why this is a good thing for the Hermantown area in your mind.
Hermantown has talked a long time about a gathering place, and also as we've looked at the health outcomes in St. Louis County, about how we can address and improve health in southern St. Louis County. Mm-hmm. So it just seems like it's a great opportunity for the region, and given where it's located, it would just be a great place for a lot of access for the residents in southern St. Louis County.
Mm-hmm. Mike, what is a wellness center? What's going to take place there?
It's a good question, because our operating entity is going to be the YMCA, and unlike the introduction, Essentia Health will be a tenant, but they won't be operating it. So we will have YMCA for exercise and all the classes and so forth they do, the daycare center they have. But we also will have almost half of the space will be devoted to public use, which will be through educational purposes, nutrition classes. That's where Essentia Health will play a role to be able to extend to the public services that will help the overall health of our community.
And how is the funding of this all coming together?
I'll let John take care of that one.
Well, it's about a $17 million project, and we had asked for an $8 million grant through the state bonding bill.
That didn't come.
Well, interesting, it was in the House bill that was passed, it was in the Senate bill that passed, but they disagreed about one other item, and then they didn't get the work done. Mm-hmm. So we've asked for that. It was in both bonding bills. We still hope that would happen. So $8 million from the state. Essentia has contributed $2 million as part of its naming rights program and their partnership. The Y is committed through the community to raise $2.5 million.
Plus the county?
And then we've talked about $4.5 million between the city and the county. And we've talked about doing that without putting that on the property taxes. Mm-hmm. So we've come up with different scenarios, and one of those scenarios is the use of sales tax.
If this passes and you begin construction when? In the spring?
Well, it would kind of probably be likely in the fall of next year, or maybe even the spring following. Because a big part of that is still waiting on the legislature.
I see.
Mm-hmm. And we also need to go through some more planning process too, as well as bidding out and so forth. Mm-hmm. Take some time.
Specifically talk about the referendum and what people are really being asked to consider in the community of Hermantown.
Yes, as John mentioned, when we went out to get input from the public about this project, The one thing we heard over and over is that don't put it on our property taxes. The public did not want that, nor did the business community. So the city of Hermantown in particular put their heads together and they came up with a plan to be able to use part of our sales tax that we currently already have in place for this project. So the important message for us is that it's not increasing in any way, it's just expanding how we're using it to this project.
And also extending the length of it, I understand.
It will be
too.
extended 10 years to 2036 because of, for bonding purposes, yes.
So if the state money does not come through, and I know that you're hoping that it does either in the next legislative session or a special session or the next bonding session, what happens then? Is there a plan B in terms of getting the bulk of that money together to really make this come to fruition? Or is it possible that it would fall apart and then this taxing is still available to you?
Well, I think there's two parts of that. One is if we don't get $8 million from the state, then we need to look at how the scope and the size of it a little bit. We may have to look at that plan a little bit. But otherwise, we look at our projections on the sales tax as well. I mean, part of the sales tax issue is it was in the tax bill, but the tax bill wasn't approved. And in the tax bill, it also said that the city residents had to approve the vote. So now if the citizens approve the vote on November 8th, we still need to have the legislature pass the tax bill and the governor sign it.
John, what kind of an economic impact could a wellness center have on Hermantown?
Well, we think it's just going to be a great attraction for people to come in and not only use that facility, but then also use some of the other retail and other outlets that are located in Hermantown and the surrounding areas.
Now, the proposed site is the old Hermantown Middle School.
Correct.
What makes that a good site for this?
We did a study and looked at a number of different sites in the area, and part of the reason why it's in Hermantown is it's at the end of the trunk line for our sewer system. Because it's for South St. Louis County as well, we needed to have that infrastructure for the water and sewer. The other thing that was, two things that were a great benefit. The site itself is already shovel ready. I mean, it's a flat site, it's been cleared. And the third part is we can reutilize parts of the middle school building, the gymnasium and a wing of the middle school that was built in 1992. Those factors actually save us about $2.5 million in the project.
So a part of it will be raised and some will be retained. The part that will be retained, what kind of shape is that in?
The part that's retained is in good shape. The gymnasium, we are going to take the shell of the gym. We're not taking the locker rooms, which is where we had some real serious problems with moisture.
Sure.
That's gone. Everything around the gym is going to be gone, but the shell is going to stay. The flooring was just recently redone, so it's in quite good shape. And of course, that classroom wing is going to be utilized by Essentia Health and daycare centers.
And I understand that the city has placed a deadline on when that demolition should take place. Is that contributing to urgency in the project?
Well, and initially, when the school district was making their plans for a new facility, we did not want to have, and the school district did not want to have a vacant school sitting there for a long time. And so we kind of said that, a year after you've left, we really think it needs to come down. But the city and the school district are not going to hold fast to that rule if we're making good progress toward that. So we're going to work with the school district for this project to come forward. I mean, the school district is such a big partner in this as well, and it being close to their campus, it's just going to be a tremendous opportunity for them as well.
There are clinics and workout centers throughout the region. Have you done a survey as to how popular a wellness center would be?
It's interesting because the idea of having, first of all, a community gathering point goes back in Hermantown to 1970s. 1980 was the #1 priority. In our studies in the very beginning, we found that St. Louis County is ranked 76 out of 87 counties in Minnesota for health outcomes. And we know that's not acceptable. We believe this is going to be a major step forward that'll have make a real lasting difference for the health of our region. And obviously, Essentia agrees with that philosophy.
When
A second part of that, though, was also the Y did a demographic study in terms of what kind of population base would they be able to attract? How would that impact the downtown operation? And they're absolutely convinced that the surrounding area and some from downtown is they're going to be able to operate that Y without any kind of subsidy. So I mean, there's a need out there, there's a market out there. So we've done kind of some of that market study as well.
When you talk about health outcomes, what are some examples of that from St. Louis County?
Well, statistically, what has come through is that obesity, heart disease, tobacco usage, mental health issues. There's a series of categories like that that has resulted in a shorter lifespan for St. Louis County residents as compared to the rest of Minnesota.
So would Essentia then be offering programming for this type of condition or outcomes to try to alleviate that?
That is correct. One of the determinations we have come to is that accessibility to those support systems is part of the problem. People don't necessarily want to go downtown or to the St. Luke's or Essentia area, but having it closer to the base population, people will be able to access it and take advantage of it.
And just to make it clear, you are not looking to increase the 1% sales tax.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, we currently have 1%, and that 1% only can be used for certain things. And that's decided by the legislature. And so this would allow us to use that same revenue, that current stream, for another purpose. And with new retail opportunities in Hermantown that has caught a lot of the news lately, we think that sales tax will continue to grow, and the city is continuing to try to be good stewards of the money. We're going to refinance some debt that sales tax is paying for now on Monday, and we expect to save almost $1 million in interest charge.
All right, we've got to run. Thank you very much, John, Mike. Appreciate you being here telling your story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
Tucked into the woods of northern Wisconsin lies the picturesque town of Solon Springs. This small community is state-of-the-art when it comes to recycling. 2.5 years ago, the area's landfill was getting too costly to maintain. That's when the town and village formed a mission to recycle. Now that mission is complete. The landfill was closed last September, and the recycle center was up to full speed by November.
We've increased our participation to people that recycle something up to 80%.
The center recycles newsprint, bottles, cans, appliances, waste oil, and metal. The community favors the project because it protects what it loves most.
Its biggest asset is the natural environment, our lake, our woods, and that helps the economic development but also improves the quality of life for the people that live here.
The facility recycles 3 of every 13 tons of garbage. That's the highest volume of recycling in the state. Laura Cowan, KDLH News.
Mark thy calendar, Shakespeare's first folio is coming to UMD. So what's all the fuss about? The first folio, published in 1623, preserved dozens of the Bard's most famous plays. 18 of them had never been printed before, including Macbeth and The Tempest, and may have been lost without the first folio. About 750 copies of the book were published in 1623, and only about a third of them are known to exist. So here to tell us more is Dr. Krista Twu, one of the first folio organizers at UMD and professor of medieval and Renaissance literature. And Matt Rosendahl is also a first folio organizer and director of UMD's Kathryn A. Martin Library. And thanks to both of you for being here. Really appreciate it. Exciting times. This, for somebody who I presume to be a literature junkie, this has to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time that the folios have ever toured the United States in this kind of a comprehensive way. And we're just so thrilled that UMD and Duluth can be the premier site for Minnesota. We'll be the only place in the state.
Yeah, we gave a real brief introduction, but talk a little bit more about what a first folio is and why this is so important to history.
Well, a folio itself is a big book. If you take a piece of, if you take a piece of broadsheet sized paper and you fold it over once, you have a folio size collection. You gather them together and you make a big book out of it. And I've actually brought a facsimile of Shakespeare's first folio, so you can see it's very big book. It's a deluxe sort of book. It had beautiful material in it, like the Drusitt portrait. You know, when we think about books that were designed this way and were this type of beautiful object, we can compare it to the 1611 edition of the first edition, the King James Bible, for instance, which was a very similar size.
So years ago, back in the time when Shakespeare's first folio was first put together, they weren't really done for projects such as his, were they? They were more Bibles and scientific books, things of this nature?
Right. They were, a folio was considered, you know, a presentation sort of book. A Bible this size would have been displayed on an altar lectern or a pulpit lectern, and so they were beautiful presentational types of objects. Most of the books, for instance, we talked about the King James Bible, which was printed in a folio size, and compared to the prevailing Bible of the day, the Geneva Bible, most of them were printed in what's called a quarto size. So if you take that folio, which you have 2 pages, you fold it again, now you've got 4 leaves, right? And it's called a quarto. It's a good handbook size. A lot of Shakespeare's plays that were published before the first folio was published were published in this size, 1 play at a time, 1 play per volume. We think they were probably used as prompt books and that sort of thing.
Matt, tell us when and where this is going to be displayed at UMD. This is a big deal for the school.
This is a very big deal. As Krista said, this was the first time that the folios are going to be touring the country from the Folger Shakespeare Library, and it's in celebration of the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death. So the folio's traveling around the country, making 1 stop in each state, and it's coming to Duluth. We got it. It'll be in the Tweed Museum of Art, October 4th through the 26th. And the grand opening is October 6th.
So what does UMD have to do to prepare to bring a really important document like this onto campus and keep it safe and yet still allow people to share in it?
You know, there were preparations that went into making sure that we were ready for HVAC controls, that the temperature and humidity are in a very strict range to be able to protect the book while it's here. We have to have security on hand at all times, obviously, to make sure the book is safe. But really, we took advantage of what was already here, the academic and scholarly strength at UMD, the interdisciplinary work that we do, and most importantly, the connections with the community. The community really has made this possible.
Krista, is Shakespeare still being taught in high school today?
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. It's part of the high school curriculum, and it's still part of the English major in college, of course. I was talking to some of the high school teachers, and they're teaching Shakespeare in their junior and senior year. Is that right?
Absolutely. We have field trip groups planning to come in from all over the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin to see this.
Matt, what was your first introduction to Shakespeare? Do you remember, or do you have a favorite Shakespearean piece that you draw upon?
Yeah, I'll admit it was probably begrudgingly in high school being introduced to it, but it's seeing the plays and really seeing it come to life on stage that has meant the most to me. And there'll be plenty of opportunity of that during the next month, with Othello being performed by Wiseful Shakespeare Company the first 2 weekends of the month. Pericles is going to be performed in our own library and theater in the round. There's lots of great opportunities to interact with it.
Krista, what do you think it is about Shakespeare that makes him so relevant still today, that young people are still discovering him and college students are discovering him and getting excited about those works again?
Well, I think it has to do with the universality of his themes, of his characters. When Shakespeare was writing, he wasn't presenting original material himself. He had used different sources from histories, from folklore, from Chaucer, from Boccaccio. So already he's dealing with material that has a long life behind it, and he's giving it new life that has been reinterpreted and remixed from the point that he put it on the page, all up until we're reading it now, Shakespeare really is for everybody in that sense. Even when we look at the book itself, one of my favorite pages in the book is it's this page that is by John Hemming and Henry Condell, the editors, and it's to the great variety of readers. So even as they're printing the book to the great variety of readers, they're imagining a very, very broad audience. Shakespeare comes at a moment in history where so many of the paradigms in terms of philosophy, geography, science, and cosmology, they're all changing. And so much of that change, that burgeoning modern world, is presented in Shakespeare. He writes in one of his last plays that he ever wrote, The Tempest, which ironically is the first play presented in the first folio. He writes a character wondering at the brave new world in front of us. Miranda says that, and her name, Miranda, in Latin, it means, hey, look at that.
well, we have a brave new world in front of us right now, so maybe people can glean something from that. Thanks for coming in and talking about this. We will have a graphic up that shows where people can find information about the events that have planned, but congratulations. It's really, really neat to have that coming to Duluth and to UMD.
Thank you so
Quite an
much.
honor.
Oh, thank you so much. We really hope to see everybody. Well, what will be the tallest bridge in Minnesota is being constructed just outside the city of Virginia, crossing an abandoned mine pit. The bridge is part of the permanent relocation of Highway 53 made necessary to vacate land for future mining. The bridge is making most of the news, but there's a lot more going on in this large-scale project. We got a tour this week from the Department of Transportation.
I'm Pat Huston with the Minnesota Department of Transportation, working on the Highway 53 relocation project as a project manager. We're about 50% done, and so the amazing thing, about a year ago today, there was nothing behind us. So everything you see is just a result of the last 11 months we got going about November 2nd of 2015. We start out and we kind of stay where the existing highway is, but where it now bends towards Virginia, we're going to go straight ahead. We'll currently constructing an interchange with Highway 135. And then we're swinging around the old Ruchelot pit, which was a mine that's now filled with water. And the reason we're moving this is this highway was built on a private easement with, at the time in 1960, U.S. Steel, now owned by a different owner and leased by United Taconite. So that's the project purpose, essentially. Built on private property, and they need to mine through this way. This thin red line here is actually a relocation of the Mesabi Trail along the highway corridor and coming across the bridge and peeling off. So this is the bridge that everybody talks about 200 feet off the water. Well underway. We're setting steel beams right now, and we swing around and back into Virginia. It's much more than a bridge project, although the bridge is garnering a lot of attention, and as is the big yellow monster crane that's now hoisting steel beams in the air.
I believe it's the 4th or 5th largest crane in the world is what we're hearing. This one's got 320-foot boom on it, 1,320-ton capacity. It came on 70 different semi-loads and probably 2 or 3 weeks of assembly time on the project itself.
We started construction early November last year. We're about 11 months into it. A tremendous amount of progress. And this is really the fun part. It's not an easy project. We've never constructed in a mine type environment. There's a lot of technical difficulties with that.
Yeah, we're constructing a bridge across with Rochelo Pit here. It's about 1,100 foot long structure and 200 feet in the air. This is the 5th and 6th beam on this current span. There's 8 beams wide on the entire structure, so there'll be 2 more that go in on this side. The heaviest group were about 750,000 pounds, and probably the ones today were at around 500,000. And the overall weight of the steel is around 10 million pounds of structural steel. It's gone real well. We have good contractors on the project, so everybody's working together and we're on schedule, if not a little bit ahead.
It's been quite a learning experience and challenge, especially under a very compressed time frame. We have to be completely out of here mid-November next year, have traffic on that new highway, have everything here removed, pavement, utilities, bridges, the whole 9 yards, so that United Taconite can begin mining through here. I'm hopeful, and I think the city of Virginia and the Quad Cities around here are hoping it will be a landmark and really attract people. We don't have any other bridges crossing old mine pits.
Besides Highway 53 and the Mesabi Trail, Virginia's sewer and water lines are also being relocated as part of the project. MNDOT says many local contractors have been hired and the millions of pounds of steel in the project are all American made.
It's time now for the business headlines from our friends at Business North. Lake Superior College and the University of Wisconsin-Superior have signed an agreement that allows students to transfer academic credits between the institutions. The schools already work together closely. Each year, about 75 students transfer from 2-year LSC programs to complete their degree at UWS. Several academic areas already are covered, including accounting, paralegal studies, social work, and biology. Joining them are elementary education, sustainable management, and health and wellness management. Faculty and staff from both institutions worked together to design the plan.
Cliffs Natural Resources and the United Steelworkers have ratified a new 3-year labor contract. It covers employees at its United Taconite and Hibbing Taconite mines in Minnesota, plus those at the Tilden and Empire mines in Upper Michigan. The new contract is retroactively effective from October 1st of last year. Approximately 2,000 United Steelworkers union workers are affected. Similar contracts previously were ratified between the Steelworkers Union and 2 other mining companies, United States Steel and ArcelorMittal.
Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College in Superior has stepped forward to help students displaced by the surprise closure Wednesday of Regency Beauty Institutes. Regency unexpectedly announced that all 79 of its campuses would close, including its Duluth location. WITC, which already offers a cosmetology curriculum, has scheduled an informational meeting for Regency students who have been displaced. Lower high school populations, combined with the high cost of higher education, has led a growing number of private colleges to close, a trend that is expected to continue. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Call now if you have a comment on our program. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And don't forget to visit the WDSE website for updates on your favorite programs, news about the station events, and listings of the programs available on our 4 digital channels. So Denny, it would be a great weekend to get out and enjoy the fall colors. They're just about peaking right now.
They are, aren't they? We've had some strong winds for several days. A lot of leaves on the ground already, but still more to come.
Oh, it's gorgeous. For Denny and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next time.